Hello, friend. Welcome to this episode of the Influential Nonprofit. I'm so happy to have you here. This is part two of a three-part series on how to show up as a leader at meetings. So how to get a meeting, how to host a meeting, and how to follow up with a meeting as a leader to use your influence in the best way possible. Last episode, I talked about how to get people to actually meet with you. Now I'm going to talk about how you show up at that meeting and how you run the meeting or conversation or whatever. For the purposes of this, I'm just going to call it a meeting. Okay. Next time, how to follow up. And that's going to be a good one, because a lot of times we have really great meetings and then nothing happens. Why is that? That's next time. And let's get into what I want to talk about today, which is how to show up as a leader to a meeting. Now, you might be saying, but I meet with very wealthy people and they have a lot of money or these highfalutin types, and I have to show up and I want to show up in deference to their authority or their leadership. So what you're saying is kind of like you are up here at this certain level, or they're way up here at a higher level, and you're sort of down below looking up. And I want to put that image aside and really focus on coming as a peer-to-peer situation, right? Where you both have assets, you both have things you want to get done, and you may need each other in order to do it. Because when you show up in deference, you don't show up as a leader. I'm going to give you an example of something I did where I set a meeting and didn't show up as a leader. And then when I'm done with that, I'm going to give you a framework for how to do this. So when my business was pretty new, I was meeting with people, and this was before the pandemic, meeting with people around my town, sort of talk about what I was doing and how I was doing it, and just to make those connections and let people know what I was up to. And there is a person in my city. She's an amazing person. Her name's Maxine Clark. She used to run Build-A-Bear. And she sold that, and she is a philanthropist and activist in St. Louis. And she's built this beautiful space called Del Mar Divine, which is a nonprofit co-working space. Anywho, back to the meeting. Oh, goodness, hold on. Back to the meeting. I asked to meet with her, and she's just one of those people that keeps her calendar open for meetings like this. And I went in to meet with her. And I became a little deferential at the meeting because it's, she's an important person in our community. And I was kind of letting her lead, even though I had asked for the meeting. And we had a great conversation. It wasn't like it went bad. It was a good meeting. It was a healthy exchange of ideas and dialogue. But when I got out of that, I talked to one of my coaches who said, it sounded like you too were in different meetings. You were a meeting with a mentor. She was in a meeting with a peer. And what he was saying is that from what I was sharing with him about what had happened, he was calling forward that, like, I think she saw you as a peer, but you were seeing her as someone above you. And anytime you go into a meeting, you come around and say, look, we're peers in a sense. Yes, yeah, I get it. They have the money, or they, whatever. And also, when I come in as an equal, when I come in and say, I have assets, you have assets, let's just see if those assets work together or not, that's a much more powerful position. And people want to work with partners. They want somebody who sees themselves as worthy. And, so I'm just sharing this because I'm not perfect at this. It's a constant practice for me. I get better at it all the time. And also, the more I show up as a leader and use my influence in conversations, in meetings, the more powerful and successful I become. So let me share with you exactly how to do this. Now, when you meet with someone, sometimes people say, oh, it's easier to do it in person, or I have Zoom fatigue, all of these things. And it's so much easier to meet with people in person. I get that, because most communication is unspoken. And so we tend to subconsciously, we're not even conscious of it, reading energy, reading cues that people give off. That's why in-person meetings are so much easier, because we feel like it's easier to read those cues. So I get that. And sometimes though, when you're in person, it may be harder to show up as a leader to the conversation, because you may be meeting in somebody's office, or you may be having lunch or a coffee. So I want to help you navigate this, whether you're on the phone, on a Zoom, or in person. And truly, I believe your magic can show up anywhere you choose it to. And I want you to be careful about telling yourself a story of like, it's so much easier in person. Because what you're doing is you're setting yourself up to not have good conversations if you have a conversation on Zoom or on the phone. So if you can acknowledge that sometimes it's easier than person, and my magic can show up anywhere I choose, that's a more powerful story, just to get you in that right framework. Now, here's what I want to say. Step one to this whole process is something called releasing the outcome. So if I'm meeting with somebody, sure, I have an idea of what I'd like to have happen. And also, I'm not attached to any specific outcome. Whatever happens, I'll be okay. Why this is so important is because people can smell desperation. And the more you want somebody to do something, the less likely they are to do it. The more you let someone choose for themselves what they want, the more likely they are to choose what you have. So when I release the outcome, meaning I have no attachment. If you book a call with me and you may be interested in working with me, we have a conversation. I will tell you 100% straight up, whatever you decide is totally okay. And I mean it. I mean it. Yes, maybe there's somebody I'd love to have, and in the end they didn't enroll. I can feel that disappointment and still be okay, because I've released the outcome. Sometimes the best meetings you have are the ones that you go into and you have no agenda. You're like, you're not even sure why you're there, right? And all of a sudden amazing stuff starts happening. That's because you released the outcome, whether you knew it or not. You released the outcome. So first things first, before you do anything else, is get yourself in that mental state to release the outcome, whatever that looks like. Sitting in your car for a few minutes before you go into the coffee meeting, or the restaurant, for lunch or whatever. Before you get on that Zoom call, just give yourself 30 seconds to a minute to just say, whatever happens, I'm okay. I have no attachment to this, because the more I know I can release it, the more successful I'll be. Once you get into that space, then we can, let's get rolling. And the first thing is kind of rapport, right? Like when you meet with someone, oh, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. And you meet with people. And this is very important step, because rapport just seems like light banter. But rapport is important because it allows you to establish a connection, and it allows you to read the energy of the person. And that are they struggling? Are they crabby that day? Do they, are they, are they excited? Are they looking contemplative, right? It gives you a chance to read what kind of state they're in. And if you've never met them before, you can also kind of read like what kind of personality they have. Are they high energy, low energy? Are they reserved, outgoing? Like you can get a sense to read them. So you're really letting your brain tap into who they are. Now, here's the thing about rapport. You don't want it to go on too long. All right. Because the longer you do the chit chat, the harder it is going to be to move the meeting to the business part of it. So 2 or 3 minutes for rapport. Now, if you're meeting someone in person, let's say, you're meeting for coffee, what I would love for you to do is like get your drinks or food or whatever, use that time for rapport. And then when you sit down, you want to shift the meeting to business, because you can't really talk and have a meaningful conversation when you're in line, or if you're at a restaurant, try to get your order in right away and use that time for rapport, so that once that order is placed, you can shift the conversation to business. I know my magic can show up anywhere. And also, I don't drink coffee. I don't do coffee dates, and I don't really do lunch, because it's hard for me to have a really meaningful conversation with a lot going on around me. So I prefer Zoom. It works for me the best. And so, not that My magic can't show up anywhere. And also I know what works well for me. But if you like to meet in person, that's great. Let your magic work for you there. But also when there's a lot of interruptions, it can be hard. It can be hard to keep the flow of the conversation. So I recommend using rapport, either get your coffee and sit down or place those orders and then get down to the conversation. All right. Now, the next step. So we got our mind straight. We had a little rapport. Now we want to do something called a pre-frame. Now, this methodology was taught to be my coach, Michelle Villalobos, that was taught to her by her coach. And I have sort of massaged this and kind of like taken this framework, added a little bit from neurolinguistic programming, from other things. It's basically kind of the same framework, okay? Mindset, rapport, pre-frame. Pre-frame is definitely the critical point where you show up as a leader to the conversation. And a pre-frame is when you set the conditions of the conversation. The person that sets the conditions of the conversation has the most influence in the conversation. So what happens a lot is two people will sit down and you will defer to the other person out of politeness. Okay, so let's say you're meeting with someone who might be a potential donor. So, and there comes a point where like you go, no, you go, and there's this little sort of back and forth where you're both trying to negotiate the conditions of the conversation or of the meeting. And you maybe defer to be polite. We're not going to do that. Okay, a pre-frame goes something like this. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad we could get together like this. I'm really looking forward to talking with you. What I would love to have happen is I want to hear all about you and your goals and what's going on. And then when I feel like I got a handle on your situation, I'll share some stuff about our organization and what's happening. And after that, we can decide if there's opportunities to explore or not. And whatever you decide or however it goes is totally okay. That's a pre-frame. A pre-frame is all you're doing is setting the conditions for the conversation and asking for agreement. You can say, hey, it's so great to meet you. What I would love to have happen is I want to hear what's going on with you and how you see this issue. And then I'll share it from my perspective. And then from there, we can decide, we can start brainstorming solutions or next steps. Does that sound okay with you? Yeah, okay. You setting the conditions of the conversation, showing up as a leader, taking that deep breath, ascending your throne and saying, here's what I'd love to have happen. Now, the second time I met with Maxine Clark, I went back really just like, my business had shifted a lot. I felt like it was a good time to catch up. And also when I went back to see Maxine the second time, I showed up as a leader and I did a pre-frame. I said, Maxine, I'd love to hear all about what's going on with Del Mar Divine. That's the nonprofit co-working space she has developed. And then after that, I want to share with you some stuff about my business. And then, from there, we can, if there's any opportunities we see, we can talk about them then. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. People like to be led. Even leaders like to be led. Even good leaders like to be led. Even people with money and power and authority, they still like to be led. They want to know you have a process because they want to trust you. They want to trust you with their money, with their time, with their attention, with whatever assets they have. So they want you to show up as a leader and that you have a process. That creates trust. Deferring to them creates doubt. Like, can they really handle this? Is this going to be okay? All right, now that you set your pre-frame, the next step is easy peasy, y'all. You got to just listen. Now, you've got your packet or your brochure or your talking points or your sponsorship opportunities, and we're just going to set those aside. Okay, you got those just in your back pocket in a little portfolio. We're just going to set those aside and listen. Get them talking. You want to get them talking. So and people love it, so it's super easy. Tell me what's going on. How have things been? Anything like that. Get them talking, because in every pre-frame, if you notice, I had the other person go first. I can't help you or understand what I can't understand how I'm of value to you or how I can be of value to you if I don't know where you're at. And my only job is to help people feel seen and heard. We tend to over focus on what we have to say, on having all the answers, on having the perfect pitch, the perfect story, the perfect this. No, don't stop. You don't need to. You don't need to. Honestly, listen. Listen to understand. Listen to understand what's going on with them, where they're coming from. I promise you, you will get a better outcome doing it this way than pitching them. People don't like to be pitched. They don't like to be sold. People hate to be sold. They love to buy. When you're allowing them to buy into your idea, if you allow them to buy into it, they're going to be much more likely to do it. And that comes from listening. So your only job is to listen, right? When you listen to understand and validate, not to fix or solve anything. Like, so say you have a donor and the donor is upset, like maybe your organization. I just had somebody on a call, like they sent the wrong direct mail piece, like, and the donor was upset. You know, I give to heart transplants, not lung transplants. How could you do this to me? Oh goodness. Okay, so why don't we schedule a call and talk about it? And on that call, you say, well, I'm here because so glad we're meeting. What I'd love to have happen is to talk about your, what's going on with you and the issue that you had with us. And you're going to listen. And so what I'm hearing is you're going to say to that person, and this is that you felt really misunderstood by us because I can't remember which was which, but like, because you're a huge donor to us to the heart transplant, and we actually sent you the lung transplant and you did not feel valued by our organization. I completely understand how that would feel bad. I totally get it. So all I had to do was listen. I didn't have to fix or solve anything. All I had to do was listen. I don't even have to make it go away. All I have to do is listen. In fact, it's better to not make it go away. I don't have to say, make an excuse like, oh, it was a clerical error. I just have to acknowledge. All people want to be is seen and heard. And if you can allow people to feel seen and heard and understood, they will be of value to you and they will be open to what you have to say. All right, let me go back. Let me go through this a little bit more. Once you listen, what you're listening for is an opening. So what an opening is when your idea matches, or what their need matches what you have to offer, your idea. Now, once you hear the opening, don't say it because you can note it, right? Oh, there's my opening. Okay, yep, I hear it. But we're going to hold it because we want them to feel seen and heard and to feel complete in whatever, because there's going to be time in a minute for you to share that idea. What happens is people say, oh, we're looking for volunteer opportunities. Oh, we have those. Okay. And then you get all into it. And like, we're looking for volunteer opportunities. And you're like, notes. Okay, tell me more about that. All I'm doing is digging, listening. I don't have to pitch, sell, convince, nothing. All I got to do is listen. Once you listen, to understand and you feel like you understand where they're coming from and you validate, you say, so here's what I'm hearing. And they say, yes, then you can move to your idea. All right. So let's go. Like, we got our mindset right. Okay. That's number one. We built rapport. That's number two, right? We set the pre-frame. That's number three. We listened. That was number four. Now 5, and for the opening, right? Now we listened. 5, we validated and got and got a commitment that they were understood, right? That we understood what they were saying, right? Now we're into 6. Now you can share. So instead of sharing what you've got number 1, we're sharing what you've got at number 6. So I heard you mention volunteering. I would love to talk with you more about that. Would that be okay if I shared something with you now? Now notice what I said was, would that be okay? It's called a micro commitment. I am asking for permission all through the conversation to keep moving it along. Is it okay if I share something now, would you be open to some feedback? I'm asking for permission. Again, I'm putting the decision making into their hands because they know the more I give them the decision, the more they buy, right? The more they're going to do what I want. So then once I hear that opening and I know that and once I get permission, then 7, I can share my idea. Number 7, I can share my idea. So not 1, not 2, not 7, step 7. Once they right, that was 7, right? Okay. I hope that's right. Did I lose count? Okay. So either way, it's at the end. Okay. It's not at the beginning. That's when you can pull out your sponsor list. That's when you can pull out your thing. Now, let me give you 2 really good examples of this. Okay. One is more around internal stuff and one is more around fundraising stuff. Okay. First thing, this woman who took my influence course, she was awesome. She was saying that in her staff that worked under her kind of squabbling a lot. It was during the height of COVID. They worked with adults with disabilities. There's a lot of pressure, just all of the procedures and things that were put in place. Staff was kind of bickering a lot. They weren't getting along. And it was bumming her out, and her supervisor, her direct report said to her, and I mean, she noticed this, right? And she was like, the manager noticed this, and she said, okay, maybe they need some team building to kind of, help them reconnect. All right, so the old way would be to go to the direct report and say, hey, let's do some team building. Now, y'all, you guys know, when you say team building, people are like, oh my gosh, right? Oh my God. Because they see no point of it, no context for it. You're pushing them on it. They're being sold team building. All right, let's do some team building. Ugh, we got so much to do. We're so busy. Why do we have to do this stupid thing? There's no buy-in. So let's do it this way. So the manager goes to the direct report and say, hey, how's it going? What's going on? I have some thoughts. And also, I really want to support you guys. Part of what this conversation needed to do was to give that direct report a safe space to share openly, right? And so part of her pre-frame was, I'm here to support you and I really want to know what's going on so that I can support you and help you in the best way possible. And so the conversation began and the direct report said, they're just not getting along. It's wearing on me. The COVID restrictions and procedures are, difficult and time consuming. People aren't showing up for work. The adults that in our care, the families really need a break and they're depending on us. And I feel the extra pressure. And so then the manager does what I'm hearing is, this is a really tough time. No, you're not getting along. And, and you would love a way to help the staff reconnect and kind of recenter and do sort of an energetic reset of this department. Does that sound right? Yes, that's what we're going through. Hey, okay. I have an idea and I think it might help you as far as helping them to build that team feeling, to reconnect with each other and to communicate more effectively in the future. Would it be okay if I shared this with you? Yeah, sure. Okay, well, there's this team building exercise or program. And from what you're telling me, I think this might work in this setting. I'd love to share some details about it. Would that be okay? Yeah, okay. And now I'm going to share the details of the team building that I want to implement in the context of helping solve the problems that she just identified. Instead of saying, hey, we're all doing team building or pitching it to her, which is going to put her on the defense, I'm listening for understanding and seeing where there's an opening where what I have or what I think I have will really fit their needs. I want to say too that an opening is, it's either there or not. I can't force it and I can't make it. If there's no opening, there's no opening, right? Maybe team building wasn't the right thing. And by tabling that, by releasing that outcome from the beginning, right? Getting in that right mindset. If she buys it, she buys it. She does, maybe there's even a better outcome that now we can explore because I was open to it. I didn't have an agenda where, this manager didn't have an agenda if the direct report picked team building or not. That was just an idea that she had, right? And maybe there was a better idea. But now we can talk about it, because I wasn't really attached to the outcome. I just want this person to get some help because I know she needs it. All right, let me give you another example. I was doing a workshop and someone said, we have this sheet and I have 11 ways that like someone could potentially get involved in our organization. That's awesome. She goes, and I will present it to people and say, here's the 11 ways we can get involved in our organization. I said, love that. And what I'd like you to do is use that more for you and not them. Because if I give you 11 choices, chances are you're not going to choose any. I'm putting the burden on that person to decide what's best. When if I listen, I can guide them to what's best. So let's say, I'm meeting with somebody who may want to get involved with my organization. I'm not really sure how, no problem. We'll just see if there's a connection. So I'm going to release the outcome, right? Get into my mindset, build a little rapport. So glad we could connect like this. This is so super exciting. Okay, well, here's what I'd like to do. I would love to hear all about you and your company and, how your company works and your values and how you want to, how you want to connect with charities or philanthropy or however. And then once I get a sense of your needs, I'm happy to share a little bit about my organization and any ideas that I have that might work for you. Does that sound okay? Oh, okay, sure. And then the person is going to talk and you're going to listen. And maybe during that conversation, the potential person says, we just love volunteering. Our employees love volunteering. And we often look for ways that we could do some bonding outside the office in service to others. Oh, well, we actually do that. So your brain is like, boom, we do that. Now, in that moment, when that person is talking, your brain goes, ooh, we actually do that. But your mouth says, oh, that's great. Okay. Tell me more, right? Because I want to go deeper and deeper, deeper. Then once I feel like they feel complete and you'll kind of get it, you'll get good at this. Then I can say, okay, so one thing that you said that really came through for me was this idea about volunteering, because we have these awesome experiences for volunteers. And would it be okay if I shared some of that with you right now? Yes, because now they're invested because they've identified. Okay. If you and I, let's say you and I, lovely person in my ear on my screen, you and I get together, we have lunch, and I say, so here's 11 interesting things about me. Which topic would you like to explore today? My shoe collection, my love of karaoke. I was inducted in the Football Hall of Fame. I have 3 kids adopted from foster care. Let's see what else. Oh, remodeling, owning a business, influence, interpersonal communication, like whatever it is, like which would you like to talk about? Well, no, that's not how we build relationships. We build relationships because we listen and look for like-minded things. So just as if you would build a friendship, you're going to build this relationship. And having that list is awesome. It's how we use the list that I wanted her to shift and make that list more for her, because now she can guide this person into the right opportunity, open the door, and then from that relationship, build in new experiences or new ways of connecting. Because I'm listening, right? So you really can release the need to say everything perfectly, to have the right response. The whole point of the listening is to be in the moment. I don't even like to take a lot of notes. If somebody says something, I'll just jot down a key word that I want to go back to or that I want to ask them about. I don't take a lot of notes so we can maintain eye contact and I can stay in the moment, because even in the act of note taking, I take myself out of the moment because I'm thinking about what they just said and not thinking about what they are saying. And here's one thing that I want to bring up that I didn't talk about in the pre-frame that I think is important to this. Okay. Conversations can be stressful. If you're meeting with someone who could be a potential donor or sponsor or investor or something, that can be stressful for them. Okay. And it can be stressful for you. If you're any kind of meeting, any sort of unknown causes stress, and it causes our brain to go into fast forward crazy motion, trying to figure out what in the world is coming next. When I set the pre-frame and show up as a leader to the conversation, I can relax the other person. Have you ever been in a meeting and you're not really sure why you're there or what's happening? Right? Or if you ever been in a meeting and somebody just starts talking and you feel like it's gone off the rails and like, oh my God, like, whoa, okay. Right? When I set the pre-frame and I set the conditions for the conversation, it allows me to show up as a leader, and it allows me to calm the other person, because now they know what's coming next. So if I'm meeting with a potential donor and say, I'm so glad that you made the time to meet with me, this is really exciting. What I'd love is to just listen and, about who you are and your philanthropic goals and, anything you want to share. And then I can share a little bit about my organization if it's relevant. And then we can decide if this is something that you want to explore or not. And whatever you decide is totally okay. And I say this a lot, whatever you decide is totally okay. And like I said before, I mean it and you mean it too. Whatever they decide is totally okay. All right. Okay. So now I've told them that I'm going to do a lot of listening. I'm going to share a little bit about my organization. And if there's a fit, there's a fit. If not, because if I don't say that, what happens is our brains are like this. When is she going to ask? How much is she going to ask me for? Do I want to give it to her? Do I have to talk to my husband before I do this, or my partner before I do this? Can I just give her some money and make her go away? Is this something I really want to invest in? Their brain, how much is lunch going to cost? How much is parking? I need to pick up a prescription. Like right? The brain is going. Okay. So when I pre-frame, I can relax that person. They know what's coming next, and I can be present with them and they can be present with me. And our brains don't have to do, because if I don't pre-frame, my brain is like, when should I ask? How much should I ask? What if I don't say the thing right? I'm just present. And I'm going to tell you, it is so little about what you say. It's so little about your answers. Even if you don't know the answer, that's totally fine. You say, you know what? I'm not sure. And let me get back to you. What a great reason to follow up. We feel like we have to have all the answers and the perfect response in the moment. All we have to do is help people feel seen and heard. And in that itself will form such a stronger relationship. Because if they're not the right fit, that's fine. And they're going to respect you even more for honoring that about them, instead of trying to convince them or pull them or push them into something. And here's the other thing. And I know if you're a perfectionist, if I'm sort of a wing it person. If you're not a wing it person, this could be challenging for you. The words will come. I promise you, in the moment, if you believe that the words will come, the words will come. Don't worry about what you have to say. Don't worry about having the perfect response, because what you're doing is not listening to that person. You're trying to figure out how to respond. You're trying to fix or solve or enroll them in whatever you have. And honestly, you don't have to worry about what to say. All you have to worry about is listening and validating, listening, empathizing, and validating what they have to say. 100%. This is super powerful stuff that I'm going with you. And it really goes against sort of what we've been taught. And, you can convince somebody, you can push somebody into doing something. And it may work in the short term, but in the long term, what we want are strong, meaningful alliances. with people who truly care about our mission and want to work with us to support it. We don't want to have to convince people or push them into anything. First of all, you can't, right? Here's the kicker. You cannot control people, right? All you can do is what you do. All you can do is put your stuff out there, make those calls, listen, empathize, be of value, use your influence. You don't get to decide who, and you don't get to decide when. And I don't either. I don't get to decide who comes to my course. I don't get to decide when they enroll. My deadline, right, is not a reason for you to have urgency. Like, I'm enrolling for my course in August. Well, if our whens match, that's great. If not, that's okay too. I don't get to decide that. I wish I could. Oh, friend, I wish I could so much. Okay. How much better, easier the world would be, maybe. But we can't control what other people do. All we can do is set the best conditions possible. And that's what these conversations do. So let's just remember the mindset, rapport, pre-frame, that is the key. And you may even want to practice that a little bit, kind of have that worked out. That would be, if it were me, the only part of this that I would really rehearse. And then we do the listening, and you can have your donor profile, you can have your research, you can have your whatever it is, but we're going to keep it over here. We're going to keep it to the side and just listen. Release your agenda, be fully present and listen. And once we listen and validate and they feel seen and heard, if we hear an opening, we can ask for permission and then explore that opening with them. And then we're going to set next steps. And that, my friend, will be in the next episode of this podcast, is now what to do, how to set the next steps of a conversation so that you can keep the deal moving. Either release them and let them go, or keep the conversation or whatever it is moving forward. And that's going to be in the next episode. All right. As always, you can go to theinfluentialnonprofit.com and download my Uplevel Your Influence Starter Kit. A lot of the concepts I talk about on this podcast are in there. And bonus, the exact template that I just walked you through is available for download. So just go to influentialnonprofit.com, download that template. I walk you through exactly word for word how to have these conversations. So I know you're going to want to get that so you can read it. You can even share it with other people inside your organization. Completely different, powerful, transformative conversations happen from these experiences. I know this because I witness it every day, and the people that I coach and train, they're getting much, much better outcomes because they're using this approach, right? It can be hard sometimes if those hard charging board members are like, bring it in, money, money, money. I can't control people. Sure you can. Get out there, close, sell. I'm not going to pitch because I know what works and what gives us long-standing, valuable, meaningful relationships is doing it, is really witnessing people for who they are, now who we want them to be, because that's where our pain comes from, right? The gap between who people are and who we want them to be. That is it. Download that guide at the influentialnonprofit.com and read it. And if you have any feedback, my contact info is in the show notes. I'd love to hear it from you. If you try this and it works, please let me know. I would love to collect some stories and share them again on a future episode. And that is it for me and this episode of The Influential Nonprofit.